Hi there, Steve Kaufman here. Today I want to talk about when should we start speaking in a language. And I refer specifically to this concept that we need to speak from day one. We need to speak early in order to learn a language, that this is somehow a shortcut, a secret to learning languages more quickly. I mention this because we had and still have an interesting thread at our forum at Link on the subject of when we should start speaking. And it started with one of our members, who is a great contributor to Link, Evgeny, who has created countless wonderful lessons for learning Russian in our library, and who is a very experienced teacher. And he says he gets annoyed at those students who feel they can just talk their way to fluency and don't put the effort into listening and reading and building up their vocabulary and learning the grammar and so forth and so on. And this sparked a lively debate, some people agreeing with him, some people not. I, of course, agree with Evgeny. I'm not a teacher, so I'm not bothered by people who won't put the effort into learning the language, who just somehow think they can magically talk their way to fluency. But I speak more as a learner, and I'm trying to remember the points that I had made, basically summarizing the discussion. There's three things wrong with this idea of, speak from day one, speak my way to fluency. The first one is that it's not very practical. If you have no words, and if you don't understand what the other person is saying, you can't say very much. So speaking from day one means either having a very patient person who's going to accommodate you while you essentially have nothing to say and don't understand what they're saying, or paying for a teacher. Most people who study a language are not in the country, so they're somewhere else. So they would have to, I guess, get a teacher, or try and find some native speakers who are going to spend time with you. But realistically, how do you feel if someone comes up to you who can barely speak English and says, "I want to speak to you in English"? Quite frankly, unless this is a close friend or unless they're paying me, I'm not going to spend much time with them. Maybe I'll be polite for a couple of minutes, but nothing much beyond that. If we are in a country where we don't speak the language, we're better off to use English for practical reasons. So therefore, I think it's not realistic to expect that you can speak from day one. The second thing is that it is irrelevant to the final outcome in terms of if our goal is to achieve fluency. Whether we speak from day 1, day 10, day 50, it doesn't matter in my experience. I like to start speaking when I have something to say. In other words, when I have enough words that I can actually have a meaningful and therefore enjoyable conversation. And I have seen all kinds of examples when I lived in Japan, for example, of people who had a few phrases. Hello, goodbye, dame, no good, utsukushi, beautiful, or subarashi, or konnichiwa. And that's all they ever learned. Those people who became fluent in the language put the effort into listening, reading, building vocabulary, studying, books. I mean, it takes work. And just kind of hoping that you can converse your way to fluency, I think, is therefore A, unrealistic, B, irrelevant to the final outcome. And the third thing is that by encouraging people to think that they can just talk their way to fluency, it hides the fact that it actually is a fair amount of work to achieve fluency. In my own experience, I read thousands, hundreds of thousands of words, and I listen to most of that. Now, I enjoy doing that. And that's the other thing. A lot of this sort of passive learning, if you want, is for many people almost the goal of their learning. It's extremely enjoyable. We like to watch movies in French or Japanese, or read, or watch Korean drama, or even to be able to understand a conversation. This ability to understand what's going on, in other words, to have the vocabulary and to build up one's comprehension, is rewarding. It's extremely rewarding, and it is the precondition for fluency. You can't become fluent if you don't understand what other people are saying to you. So I mention this, first of all, because of the discussion we had at our forum, and also because it relates to the 90-day challenge that I'm doing in Korean. And people have asked me, because I'm going to be doing videos, both in English and Korean, talking about what I do, how I'm learning, how I spend my time during the day, and also talking to Korean people when the opportunity is there. But there's no obligation for other people to do this. People can take the 90-day challenge, commit to spending time with the language, reading and listening, and they can talk as little or as much as they want. And they certainly have no obligation to produce a video for other people to see. However, I will say that in our path to fluency, eventually we have to talk a lot. You cannot become fluent. You cannot convert your passive knowledge of the language into fluency unless you expose yourself to a lot of situations where you are speaking. But that comes later on. But one of the very useful things to do is to create videos on YouTube and keep them private. You don't have to publicize them. And then you can, as you watch yourself speak, you become very much aware of where your mistakes are and what you need to work on to improve. So, there's a lot of different strategies you can use to get yourself to where, you can speak well. But speaking from day one is not one of them. So, insofar as my own activities now in Korean, I have already spent, probably 6, 7, 8 months on average, an hour a day. So whatever that is, 150, 200 hours on Korean. So I'm not starting from scratch. And yet, when I go to speak to people, if I see some Korean speakers in Vancouver, I will not pass up the opportunity. But I go to them more to show off than anything else because I don't understand what they're saying back to me very well. I haven't been in very many practical situations of communicating. Occasionally when I play golf with my friend Mr. Choi, we'll speak in Korean. I don't understand much of what he's saying. He has an accent. That's another issue. I have, like, when I was really into my Korean 6, 7 years ago, I did have some meetings with the president of a local Korean newspaper, and we were half in English, half in Korean. But my Korean has since declined. So my strategy here again is I've got to get my Korean up to a level where I can understand what people are saying. And so the initial 90 days, the initial 15 to 30 days is going to be heavily focused on input. And thereafter, I will step up the speaking. And I intend also to do more writing, which I haven't done in the past. So tomorrow, which is the first day of my 90-day challenge, I'm going to go to a Korean bookstore here in town, and I'm going to buy a book which Korean children use to learn to write the Hangul, because I'm going to have to write it if I'm going to pass this TOPIK exam sometime in April when I intend to go to Korea. But in any case, I just wanted to mention that at least from my perspective, you start speaking when you feel like speaking. There's no obligation. If you want to try to speak, if the opportunity is there, you want to try out what you've learned, do so. But if you don't have that opportunity and you're not going to rearrange your social life just to create that opportunity, it's not a problem. Many people who have a few phrases, that's all they ever learn. And other people who don't use those phrases but start speaking a month or 6 months later, they may end up with an even higher level. Like, it's largely irrelevant. So there I wanted to express these views. And again, tomorrow I start my Korean